Alright, have you noticed how modern life seems to be zipping by very quick? It's like time is speeding up. Hours can just evaporate. It's almost like time is stretched thinner. And yet we know that clock time doesn't vary at all. So our experience of time changes, and it changes depending on where we are, whether we are in the city or in the countryside. So once we know that, what can we do about it in order to live a better life?
Do you ever get the sense that time isn't behaving the way it used to? Days can feel rushed. Weeks, even whole months, can disappear when we look back. Modern life seems to be speeding up, but we tell ourselves this is illogical. Time is consistent, and clocks prove this. If that's the case, why does our experience of time change? Why does the texture of time itself seem to shift? Some hours feel stretched thin. Others feel deep, beautiful, rich in time. Years ago, this question perplexed me enough that I started reading books on the subject. One of them was called The Geography of Time. It wasn't just a philosophical study, it included a series of practical experiments designed to measure the pace of life. And what these experiments revealed was odd. Every culture has its own speed. Whether we realize it or not, we are all being carried along by it.
Oops. Sorry.
This has huge implications for the way we live our lives. Before we get into the experiments, it's worth looking at this idea of the geography of time.
This is not exactly ideal. The chickens have stopped laying in the coop and instead they're laying wherever they feel like it, which is okay for like, say, a week, and then they for some reason decide to lay somewhere completely different. I started off with this metal box and none of the chickens would lay in it, so I made them a little wooden one. And that solved the problem. One chicken would lay in the box though, and the other two would lay underneath it. At least they were all laying in the coop, but I felt a little bit sorry for the ones that were laying underneath it, and I thought maybe if I lower the box a little bit, that will mean that the other two will jump in and use the box. Now, because I've done that, none of them will touch it. None of them are laying in here. And so every day I've got to go and find the eggs. I think maybe if I just bring it back up a little bit, maybe that'll work.
We often talk about time as if it's universal, as if 1 minute in New York is the same as 1 minute in rural Italy. Mathematically, of course, but experientially, not even close. Some places move fast, some places drift slowly. I think we've all experienced this. My wife and I used to live in London, but we spent the UK winters in New Zealand. Each trip we would leave London, and the pace of life would slow as we landed in Auckland, and then slow even further as we travelled further north. Up there, I was once asked what day it was. Nobody in London had ever asked me that.
And since we're on the subject of time, I've always felt like I didn't have enough time to make bread, and this week I thought I'd give it a crack. And this is it. It turned out pretty good, and it really didn't take much time at all.
Each time we had to adjust, and the return journey was always harder, like a reverse cultural time shock. When we step into a fast society, we absorb its pace without noticing. We walk quicker, we talk faster, we lose patience more easily, and we tell ourselves this is just city living or responsibility or progress. But what if it isn't? What if most of the pressure we are feeling isn't coming from inside us? What if it's coming from the world that we've built around us? Those experiments I mentioned earlier, this is where they come in. A professor in the US had students from all over the world. When they returned home for the holidays, he gave them 3 tasks. First, they would sit at a cafe and measure how fast strangers walked down a busy street. Then they'd go to a post office and time how long it took to buy a stamp and send a small parcel, always paying with a large note, never the exact change. And finally, they'd check how accurate public clocks were in each city. Walking speed, transaction speed, clock precision. But when the results were compared, something eerie appeared. The fast cities were fast in every category, and the slow cities were slow in every category. It was as if each place had a metronome built into its culture. Tokyo, New York, Zurich, fast. Brazil, rural Mexico, the Mediterranean, slow, softer, more forgiving.
I'm going to try and save my orange tree. I planted an orange tree a couple of years ago, but I think I buried it a little bit too deep into the ground, and so the air's not getting to the roots. And as a result, the leaves are looking kind of light green. It's covered in fruit as it's trying to reproduce instead of grow.
This wasn't genetics, it wasn't personality, it was culture, a shared rhythm that everyone was moving to, whether they noticed it or not. So what do we make of this? Why did the post office visits take longer in the slow places? Because while finding the change, the clerk would chat to the customer. In the faster cultures, this simply didn't happen. And it's here the deeper pattern appears. When we move through fast cultures, we don't just speed up our bodies, we speed up our minds. We become more impatient, more distracted, more future-focused, and less present.
That should help. This is what it should look like. Darker green leaves. This looks a lot healthier.
We start dividing our days into smaller and smaller units, trying to squeeze productivity out of every gap. It begins to feel like the clock is the real boss of our lives, and we are just trying to keep up. But I think fast time has a cost. It can make the present feel thin, the future more urgent, and the past blurred. If that sounds unrealistic, just listen to what people say about modern life. I don't know where that year went. It's all going so fast. I feel like I'm always behind. We treat these complaints as personal failings, as if we're bad at organising ourselves. But it isn't us. We're living in a culture whose rhythm is too fast for the human nervous system. We didn't evolve for this. A society that values efficiency over attention and speed over depth. Over time, the faster rhythms have become the ones that dominate our working lives, our schedules, and our expectations, even if we live far from the places where those rhythms began. But if some places move quickly and others move slowly, there's an obvious question. Why do moments in our own lives stretch out while others vanish? Why can a childhood summer feel endless while entire adult years disappear without leaving a trace? And once we notice this, what can we do about it? If time is all we really have, can we experience life in a way that feels like there's more of it, that we have more time? That's what we'll explore next time, because the speed of life doesn't just come down to culture, it also comes from inside us, from the way our brains measure experience, and from the texture of the days we choose to live.
This is part of a mini series on time, so if this interests you, I'll link to something so you can continue the conversation. Leave me your thoughts on this in the comments, it would be good to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching, catch you next week.